fun to do that. Um, a lot of people have had questions about what happened and what has gone on or what is going on, and so this is going to be a good resource for you guys to exploit. Okay, welcome. My name is Chloe Ballatori. For those of you who don't know me, I am a relationship and communication expert. I'm a graduate of Princeton University and Pat Allen's Want Institute. Pat Allen was my mentor in many ways, and I use the tools that she teaches, the tools of transactional analysis and androgynous semantic realignment. I draw on the work of Eric Berne, on the work of Freud, on the work of Jung. This work is very multidisciplinary. So I may use examples from science, from literature, from psychology, whatever it may be. All this work is based on understanding and navigating the concept of duality and the duality that we have here on this planet, right? All of us are feminine and masculine. All of us experience night and day, right? All of us experience pain and pleasure. This is the nature of life here on Earth. And I could go on and on with different measures of duality, but that's how life is organized here. And it's really exemplified by the yin yang symbol, which yin being the feminine energy and yang being the masculine energy, and that sort of sweeping, flowing motion that is connoted in the symbol itself to illustrate all the gradations that are in between. So when we talk about successful relationships, and that includes the relationship that you have with yourself, what we're talking about is balancing these two energies and balancing the duality of the people in the relationship and ultimately, again, of yourself. When we have an imbalance, that's when we have conflicts. And oftentimes imbalances occur. They're either struggles for the masculine energy, which is two people fighting for control, or struggles for the feminine energy, which is two people fighting for sympathy. Okay. When we have this balance in relationships, when conflicts arise, when awkward situations arise, then we have a rubric on how to handle them, because one person will primarily inhabit the feminine energy, which is the area of feelings, and one person will primarily inhabit the masculine energy, which is the world of thoughts. Again, everybody is both. And this work applies to heterosexual relationships, homosexual relationships, because it's not really about organs, but about energy. And so even in, a homosexual relationship, you have a top and a bottom, a butch and a femme. So I have plenty of clients who are feminine men with masculine women. That works also. Just because you're a woman doesn't mean you have to be feminine. Just because you're a man doesn't mean you have to be masculine. But it is important to know which is more important to you. And so when we have conflicts, when we have awkward situations like first dates, one of the key questions that I'm going to ask you when you guys start up with your questions, which is going to be the bulk of this meetup, is which is more important to you? Do you want your feelings cherished or your thoughts respected? Like I said, everyone wants both, but when you go for both in a moment of conflict, that's an act of narcissism. The other person doesn't have any place to go. Okay. And so that's why we established this rubric. Now, we live in a very masculinized world. And what do I mean by masculine? Competitive, conquering, controlling, left brain activity, linear thinking, logic, giving, taking care of, nurturing, proving ourselves. This is the world of achievements. Most of us are in our masculine energy when we're at work. Okay. Then we have all of us have that right side of our brain that is the world of feelings, that is feminine, that is passive, patient, vulnerable, the world of sensuality and sexuality. This is the world of spirituality as well. And it's really important to acknowledge that we all have both sides. Even the universe on its own has both sides. I've already said that our society tends to be, at least here in the US, tends to be more oriented towards masculine values. And this is one of the reasons failed as a nation, and well, more than a nation, but we failed as a nation to protect our climate and some things that would be considered the feminine side of life, the yin side of life. Now, a lot of us become imbalanced in childhood from childhood trauma because when we're children, we are faced with the dual needs of attachment, right? Because we need to attach to older people. Human infants are very dependent. We can't live on our own as babies. So attachment is our foremost goal. We need to be on good terms with the people who run the refrigerator and control the access to it, right? um Oftentimes, that's at the cost of our authenticity as children. Whether your parents were well-meaning or ill-meaning, this can still occur. Obviously, if your parents were ill-meaning, your trauma was probably greater than if they were not ill-meaning, if they were well-meaning. But still, there's an alienation that occurs in childhood when a child has to abdicate their authenticity to a degree to get along in this household, right? And the problem that occurs is that this happens during the critical developmental window of 0 to 12. And when we're in this period of time, everything that happens to us has a greater power or a greater valence on us simply because it's happening at such a young age. So we develop coping strategies that we think are based on existential conclusions about life and the world and how to live and navigate the world when we're children. The problem is when we bring those strategies into adulthood and try to use them in our personal relationships. And this is where we see trauma showing up the most and primarily is in our intimate romantic relationships. And so often the things that we used as children to help us survive are the things that prevent us from living authentic lives when we are grown-ups and we do have choices, right? When you're grown up, you don't need to still kowtow to your parents to get things out of the refrigerator. You can buy your own refrigerator and get your own food, but we get locked in these patterns and human children are tamer than even domestic animals, right? We don't even need to hear the whistle. We already know what's expected of us and what we need to do. um and so we develop these coping mechanisms in childhood that ultimately don't serve us, but we are sort of doomed to repeat without bringing awareness to them. Okay, so a lot of the work that I do is bringing awareness to some of the patterns that you're using and seeing where you can change them to get a different result and to get what you want. Understanding how the duality of the universe works, specifically in relationships, will give you an edge and you will be able to navigate that duality just a lot better. This work gives you insight into relationships, yes, but you can see the dynamics reflected in literature, in science. I've already talked about right and left lobes of brains. In psychology, Carl Jung defines consciousness as the balance between the masculine and feminine. Even in reality TV, when you see conflicts, you will see that it's a conflict either of two masculine energies or two feminine energies. And what we aim for is to learn how to negotiate with love, meaning having that balanced negotiation, that supportive languaging, so that even when we have issues, we know how to bring them up in a respectful and cherishing manner. A lot of times when issues arise, either in dating or relationships, the impulse is to run. And unfortunately, the more that we avoid problems, the more they end up controlling us. So, this work is really about engaging with your problems and meeting them head on and, you know, doing the best we can, bringing awareness to our patterns and looking at ways in which we can change so that we can get what we want. A lot of times people come to me, I see men, I see women, I see couples, I see teenagers, and often the first impulse is, okay, how can I control this other person, right? How can I get him to do this? How can I get her to do that? And there may be things we can do, but ultimately, a lot of effort is put into controlling other people where we don't have a lot of agency, and very little effort is put into managing our own emotional life and regulation, which is an area that we do have a lot of agency. So that's a shift that often needs to happen when we're doing this work. I've written 3 books on this work, put some of my credentials into the chat so you guys know how to reach out to me. I put up original content on Instagram every day. Um, I put up, is that going? There we go. I'm on TikTok. I do these meetups. I'm starting a podcast. I might be doing some more stuff, but yeah, there's a lot of resources you can check out. You can reach out to me through my website or through Instagram if you want to set up a direct session. Those are really good. I also teach this work, which is the link for modules and packages, um, because these are principles you can learn, and ultimately this is work is about graduating and using these principles on your own. Now, that often it takes a period of time to learn this work, at least 3 years probably. But the idea is for you guys to ultimately learn how to fish for yourself. Now, when you apply the theories of this work into your own life, that is a different experience than when you're just listening to me talk about it or asking questions. And so I help people navigate that a lot as well. And that's what we do a lot in the modules and the packages, which is a little bit more economical way of learning about this stuff. It's it meets a small group, it meets 4 weeks at a time, and you learn the basics. And you get to learn from everybody in the room, like we will tonight too, but it's smaller and a little bit more concentrated. So that's open to you guys as well. And then the rest of the time, I'm going to devote to hearing your questions. If you've been having an ongoing problem, even if you have a general question about something or something, you can ask something that happened in the news or something that you don't understand. But usually people ask about relationships, about dating. I help people a lot with dating and flirting and meeting people and their dating profile. If you're into online dating, I also help people with problems of communication. Um, I help with family problems, family origin problems. So this work, like I said, really radiates out to a lot of areas of life. Now, the scholarship that I'm talking about, that's nothing new. Yin and yang, that's thousands of years old. And we knew about right and left brains definitively since the 1980s. Um, what's new about this work are the tools to execute on this knowledge. A lot of times when you go to a traditional therapist, you express your feelings and they nod and listen, and then you leave, but nothing really changes. And that's a nice experience to have. And we all have that need to be seen and to be heard. But for me, it was frustrating because I like to see change. And also, I like to know how to do the change in the moment that I'm in. So that's another thing that I offer for my clients is once you're my client, then you can reach out with questions. And if you're in an emergency, I'll keep track of it for you. And then you can, pay me at the end of the week or whatever. Um, because I find that if clients don't have access to me when they're actually having a problem, the problem snowballs. So you have an appointment on Tuesday and you're having a problem and you're having a problem on the Friday before, well, that's not that helpful. By Tuesday, you're going to be even worse. So it's really just more efficient that way, economically and time-wise. So yeah, that's what I help people with. I also help people navigating the pain of change because even when we start this work and it's healing and it's the right thing to do, we often experience pain because the brain rewires itself on pain. It doesn't rewire itself on pleasure. And there's a great book about that called by Norman Deutsch called The Brain's Healing Way. He's written a bunch, I'll put it in the chat, but he's written a couple really good books about brains and brain changes, which, that's been relatively new. Freud thought that the brain was static. We now know that the brain can change. But it is an inherently painful process. Also, a lot of this work involves getting in touch with yourself and maybe some things that you've repressed or suppressed, and that can be painful. But there's two kinds of pain, the pain that change is taking place or the pain that change needs to take place. And so it's really productive pain or unproductive pain. And as we know, if we've lived over 10 years, life has pain, right? And if you want to live without life without pain, then you won't have pleasure either. Because again, it's that duality. So I help people a lot with that. Okay, I'm going to open it up for questions now. And you guys can raise your hand and either Raul or I will unmute you. You can also put questions in the chat. Nil, I know you were reaching out with some questions. Okay, here we are. In my college, okay, so Nil, for you guys who weren't here last week, Nil was asking about meeting a girl and getting a girlfriend. That's basically what he wants to do. Okay. In my college, I can't make eye contact with gals because I feel awkward and creepy. So what should I do? Where do I get a girlfriend easily? Because I don't know. Please give me some examples and please help me. Okay. Okay. So one of the things we discussed, and this is an assignment that I always give my singletons, is to do these 5 flirts. Okay. And that means that you're going to be flirting 5 days a week. 4 of those flirts are going to be just on the hoof in the course of your day. Okay, I'll unmute you in a second now. One of those flirts is going to be a seated flirt where you go somewhere where you like the look of the person. Okay, so Nil, you're going to plant yourself somewhere where you like the look of the women that are there or where you think you might meet somebody. You want some examples. It could be church. It could be a Starbucks. It could be a museum. It could be a hotel bar. It could be the student center. Does that help you? And then I know you said you wanted to be in the masculine energy. So you're going to be doing the 5 seconds of eye contact and smiling at the same time when you see someone you like. And if they return eye contact and they seem open, then that's your sign that you can approach. And you can say, don't make too big a deal out of the approach, but just, it can be anything. It can be just about the surroundings you're in, the weather, whatever it is, just initiate. If you're in the masculine, if you're in the feminine, you still do the 5 seconds of eye contact and smile, but that's your signal that the other person can approach. Does that
Oh,
help more? Does that make sense, Nil?
um, let me think. Let me think.
Okay.
If I don't, I'll let you know.
Okay. Yeah, let me know. I'd love to hear your guys' updates, and it may take a little while, but once you start doing, you'll start to get the hang of it, and you'll see that you will meet people this way. It will work. Um again, and choose a place, and you can play around with it, but especially for your seated flirt once a week, choose a place that will be fun for you to go, that you think you'll meet like-minded people. Okay. Okay. Any more questions? Do you guys have? I know there was Susan. Oops. I'm trying to unmute you. There we go.
Hi, Chloe.
Hi, Susan. How are you? How can I help you?
I'm okay. I turned on listening to you right as you were saying the part about how you can't change other people. You can only change yourself. And I was like, perfect for this situation. This is not a dating question, but
Okay.
it's still something that probably a lot of people can relate to. Um, this is about well, it's not even next door. We share a wall. I live in a townhome and we share a wall and we have carports, not garages. So the space is pretty close and it's fine sometimes with people. And yet I have this neighbor on one side of me that's we kind of stay away from each other because we know we kind of push each other's buttons, I guess.
Okay. Smart.
Yeah. So, because when she was loud and it was a weeknight, it was midnight, and windows were open, and I had to go knock at her door and ask her to tone it down. And, after that, I could tell that she was like mad at me, so to speak. And
Right.
I was like,
Right.
okay, if she wants to be that way for 5 years after that one thing, that's
Right.
on her.
It's her prerogative. Yeah.
Yeah. So, she's a lot younger. She's 34 and seems pretty unhappy. And her parents bought her townhome and they buy her cars. And I don't know what her deal is. But anyway, so she put her recycling bin. She usually doesn't, it's usually all over the place. And I'll just put it somewhere out of the way. I kind of take charge of it. And then Friday night, though, I had been at the grocery store, my hands were full, it was in my way, and I moved it. Or I tried moving it, but I couldn't move it where I was going because it got wedged between her car and her fence because she pulls up so close.
Mhm.
And that's like a walkway. And so she started yelling at me.
In the moment?
And kind of, because I went inside to put my things down, and then the next thing I know, she's knocking at the door and starts yelling at me. I tried to explain, I apologized. I said, I apologize, I'm sorry, it got stuck, and
But it
and
was
she just,
literally in your way, so you couldn't get out of the car.
oh, I can get out of the car, but walking from
But you
my
couldn't get
car to
from
my
the car to
place,
your house.
it obstructs this narrow little, it's
Okay.
like
So
18
it
feet.
was literally in your way to the point that you couldn't walk.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And she's
And
yelling at you for moving it.
oh yeah, I touched her recycle bin. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I I thought, okay, given, how what I've learned from you, I need to set an appointment and talk to her about. So she was not. I knew the yelling thing. It's like, okay, she needs to calm down so
Mm-hmm.
we could talk. So it
Mm-hmm.
was not a good idea Friday night, but Saturday it timed out. I was pulling in as I'd been out. I was
So
pulling in.
how did it end Friday?
With
Did you
she
say I
turned.
can't talk to you till you stop yelling?
Well, I wish I had that part. I
Okay.
missed.
Okay.
In my past, when I have had yelling, I just take it, which is awful. And I knew that afterwards. It's like, oh man.
Yeah.
But
You're always free to
mm,
say if someone's yelling at you, please excuse me, but I can't hear you when you're yelling.
okay.
And then
I think it's
shut it
such a
down. If
shock.
they keep yelling, say, okay, I'll talk to you when you calm down, and close the door.
Yeah.
Because you're bumping up. You guys, I already know
Yeah.
Susan a little bit because she's done both the modules. So
Yeah.
you're bumping up against your people pleasing, right?
Exactly. And I
Yeah.
know I am.
Yeah.
And so part of that is coming back. It's like, oh my God, I still give her the power because I allowed her to yell at me and walk
Right.
out on me. Because
Right.
while she's still yelling and I'm trying to explain, she's walking away and goes in her house. Like she doesn't want to hear it. She just wants to
Right.
yell
And
and be in
don't
her
forget
mood.
that second corollary, which is you only defend the lie you believe. So
Oh,
by defending
yeah.
yourself, you're kind of buying into
Mm.
her premise. And I'm just saying you didn't even need to buy into her premise, right?
Yeah. Well,
She's totally
she got me
crazy,
going.
yelling at your
Yeah.
door. Close the door or don't open it.
Yeah. Okay. So that was my
Okay,
first
so that
mistake.
happened Friday. She walked away at least, so that's good.
Yeah. So Saturday, but she's self-righteous. So Saturday, I found ways to sort of calm down and get over it. That was my objective, was like, okay, I need to calm down. I was like, on a scale of 1 to 10, I was at an 8. I was pretty upset.
Yeah, you were majorly triggered.
Oh yeah. And
She went into the parent, you went into the child.
oh shit.
Yeah. It's okay. You're doing good.
But it
You're
doesn't
doing
feel
so great.
good. And I'm like struggling to try to get out of those old habits.
I know, and it's
But they're
frustrating,
there.
but be compassionate because it just takes
Um,
time. I'm dealing with it too. I've been doing this work for over a
mm,
decade and Pat, I told you Pat's in her 80s and she's still working on her shit.
mm. So, yeah, so then the next day she's pulling in, I'm pulling in, and I'm like, okay, here's my opportunity to set up a time and talk. But honestly, she doesn't want to talk.
Right.
That's
And that's the
but
other
anyway,
thing. I mean, that was a good
yeah,
impulse
but I
because
tried. I
yeah.
came to her window because she stayed in her car, which she does sometimes for a while. And I came to her car and I waved, and she like rolls down the window halfway. And I said, is this a good time to talk? And she
Mhm.
says, actually, it's not. I just got home from a funeral. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. So we can talk later? And she's like, I don't know. She said, yeah, or sure. And afterwards, I thought, yeah, that was a no. Like,
Right.
never, is
Right.
really what that was.
Right. Especially if you don't set
Because
a
I didn't
time.
set a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Or ask. So, but, so then, oh, I got re-triggered actually that morning because now she's moved it so it's even more in my way. It totally blocks me. So I was like, oh God. I was going out for a bike ride and I'm just like, I had to move it to get my bike in my trunk. So um then I decide, okay, uh she doesn't want to work on this. She just wants to be right
Right.
and live her life and be
And
a
that's the thing is like, it was a good impulse to try to set the appointment, but my thing is the
mm,
way that she's acting is that you're really not building with her, right?
no,
Even though you have to have some kind of relationship because you share a wall, she's your
yeah,
neighbor, you're not building a relationship with her. So you don't
no,
actually have to give her that. And she's also
Yeah.
been really shitty to you. So in that case,
Yeah.
it's kind of like all bets are off. You know what I mean? Like,
I know.
you don't
Okay,
need
so
to respect her anymore. Like,
I
she's
know.
doing things to, my focus right now
But
is
see, I'm
how do
still
we
trying
get
to
this
fix.
right?
What I sort of did though, I was like, okay, out of my hands, I'll just let the HOA know. They'll
Good,
take care of it.
good.
Because I thought I don't
That's
want
what I was
to.
going to ask. Do you
I'm
have an
done.
HOA?
I'm
Like, how
done.
do we get
HOA.
right?
Let's
How
see
do we
what they
get
do.
this box out of the way?
Yeah. And but then my people pleaser. I was like, oh God, it's like like uh, I've gone back and forth between is that okay or is that not okay? Because it doesn't feel very good to like
Tattletale.
tattletale. Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, really, are they going to fix it? They can tell her. I mean, they said they'll write her a letter, and if they have to give her a second warning, then she has to go to a hearing and get fined or something like that. So,
I mean, what are you
uh,
supposed to do? You've asked her already. She's
I
not
know.
doing it. So
Yeah.
tell the HOA, get them to handle it. And my thing is, don't
So,
talk to her at all.
well, yeah,
Okay.
I
Is there
tried
more to the
to.
story? What's
Yeah,
next?
there is.
Okay.
So, because this is so hard, I don't have that patience to wait day after day, but
Mm-hmm.
I can work on that.
Okay.
Um, so I was talking to this friend, neighbor, and she's like, well, what about that? She was suggesting a spot. And I was like, okay. So I looked outside and I went, yeah, that's like a good spot. I saw she was home. So I texted her. I said, hey, uh, you want to talk about, I have some ideas that, if you want to talk about them, something like that. And
Which
then
would
she,
be okay if she
she
cared
actually
about you.
engaged with me. Yeah, I
Oh, she
know
did.
she doesn't. She
Okay.
So she doesn't, she tries to pretend I don't exist. She doesn't want me as a neighbor, clearly. It's like,
Okay.
whatever, but I'm here.
Well, whatever.
I'm
She's
here
in
for the
her
next
own
30
thing.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, I don't think I should have put myself out that much to be making
Agreed.
suggestions, but she was engaging, which for me kept me trying.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I said, well, why don't you come out and look? And then she's just like, I forget what she said, but she's just like, no, I'm going to bed now, or something like that, or I have to
Mm-hmm.
do work. She was just like a no. So I was like, ah, shit.
So it kind of
Um,
seemed like she was open, but then she wasn't.
eh, but not. She wasn't going to come out.
Right.
Yeah. In other words, she she could be the nice person and work it out with me, but she would rather just keep being a bitch. I guess. But uh, sorry, I'm not supposed to say words like
It's
that.
okay. No, it's fine.
Okay.
It's totally
But
fine. You did nothing, look, you're
um,
pursuing this person who doesn't care about you. And that's the main habit I
yeah,
just want you to break.
yes.
You know, it's like she's already communicated. And this would be an instance when, you could have reached out to me.
Yeah. I think I'm afraid of her too. Because she yelled at me and she, like was like, don't touch my
Right. But let's be real. She's a 34-year-old spoiled brat. She's just
yeah,
this girl who lives next door. She has no power over you. You don't need to
yeah.
buy into it. She's triggering you because it's touching on your issues. So she herself is not an issue. Who cares about her? Nobody here
Um,
cares about her. You know what I mean?
yeah.
You don't really care about her. So,
No, but she's kind of gets me bothered. And it's
right,
like, I
she's
don't want to
getting
be
under your
bothered. I want
skin
to be
because she's
calm.
triggering your issues about
Yes.
your people pleasing. It's
Um,
triggering your patience. It's triggering your feelings of vulnerability.
yeah.
And unfortunately, she's a hostile person, but there's something in her inconsistency that fits one of your scripts. So you keep going back to it, right? You think you can
Yeah.
fix her, you think you can change it if you have the right approach. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I'm going to tell you right now, I've already heard enough. She's not open to hearing from you. So if you want it fixed, You're either going to have to keep moving it yourself or tell the HOA. But I don't think there's anything to be gained from continuing to engage with her.
Yeah, she doesn't want to fix it or engage or be friends. She
Yeah.
just so I have to just move it when it's in the way. And she goes into her yelling thing. I just walk away or cover my ears or whatever. I need
Just close
to,
the
for my
door. Just tell her to
sanity.
stop. Just say, I
Yeah.
can't talk to you when you're yelling at me. Or, you know what people are doing now? They're recording it. Take out your phone and start recording it. Don't say anything. Take out your phone and start recording it. And then you can send that
Yeah.
to the HOA.
Yeah.
You know, if she wants to take it all the way, you're a badass. You take it all the way.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like I want to feel strong, but in my past I have not been the strong person I want to be. I want to feel 100% of who I am, not let her make me feel less than that, not allow anyone else to let me feel less than that.
Right. I mean, you know, we've been working on, you know, your feminine qualities, you know, being
Yeah.
more patient and vulnerable and that. But with her, you don't want that. This is your time to bring out
Oh,
the masculine, your badass side.
yeah.
You know, ultimately your masculine side takes care of your feminine side for anybody.
Oh, yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah. So she is not she's just a 34-year-old girl living in a world of hurt. I'm sure she's in a tremendous amount of pain to be screaming at strangers like that. Let's not go down the
Hmm.
road of psychoanalyzing her. I'm just saying
Yeah.
she doesn't have any power over you, Susan. She really doesn't. It's annoying what she's doing, and it's triggering what she's doing because I
Yeah.
know because it
Yeah,
makes you
she knows
feel
it.
invisible and ignored, which is a childhood feeling,
Yes.
you know. So just the more awareness you can bring to what she's triggering in you and kind of releasing that and being compassionate about it.
Yeah, I mean,
No,
when she tried to shame me, I was like, "Oh my God, that's like a parent thing." She's like,
yeah,
"Susan, I'm shocked that you would touch something that belongs to me," or some
right.
bullshit thing like that. I'm like, "Whoa, that's what I'm thinking. That's she's heard that from her mother, that's why she's
Totally.
doing that."
Right. You could hear her parent. And what you guys
Yes,
had was, we talked about this in module 1, the cross transaction.
yeah,
She's coming at you with parent and you're responding with child when you need to be coming from adult.
yes, which is saying I can't hear you when you yell, or closing the
And
door,
cherishing your
or
feelings. Put your feelings first. The second she started yelling, you were already upset before she came in and started yelling because the fucking box was there.
yeah.
So when that happens, I want you to start bringing awareness to your feelings and putting your feelings first. So if she's
Mm.
making you feel bad at your door screaming, close the door. Whatever the action is, you got the first step, which was the awareness. Then you need to take the second step, which is the action on that awareness. You're
Yeah.
getting there. You're doing good. I mean, you're getting there. It's
Yeah,
already better than it would have been.
it's to keep taking care of myself. It's taking care of myself that I tried to move the thing, but then I kind of, yeah, I didn't continue that. When she yelled, the impulse should be close the door.
Right. And the thing is you're such a quote nice person. And I say that because it's a persona. You're beholden to act in the way that the dictates of what you think a nice person is as described to you by your parents, probably, or, society at large, or
Yes.
whatever it was at a
Yes.
young age. And I want to shift that for you to you being a kind person, not a nice person. And a kind person who is kind to themselves first. That means you can be straight with people. That means you can say no. Don't forget, women own the word no, and no is a complete sentence. And you'll be surprised. This relationship with the neighbor is going to change. When you do some of these things, it's going to change. And I put money on it that you, in a certain amount of time, this won't even be a concern.
Yeah, I think it's like you said, sometimes it's like the pain of change. Well, I am changing, so I, attempted to stand up to her by moving the thing.
And that was good, but you had to move the
yeah.
thing to actually walk.
Yeah.
And I just want you to orient it a little different, to put yourself first, because you're putting her first and her feelings first.
Yeah, I worry about other people.
Yes, but that's
much.
a habit that doesn't serve
yeah.
you.
Yeah.
It's not that taking care of others or being there for others is a bad thing. Of course, that's a noble thing, but done to an extreme, that ends up harming yourself. And you really need to put your feelings first. Nobody else is going to do that for you. You have to do that for you.
Right.
Even if that looks like doing something that you think is impolite. Do you remember the story I told you about the toiletries in the pool?
Kind of.
Okay. So I was very much like you, and I still get caught up in it sometimes, where I felt compelled to service the needs of other people before my own. And I was very much caught up in this idea of what a nice person does. Instead of doing what I wanted or how I felt or what I didn't want, I was more caught up in many cases, especially when triggered, doing because when you're triggered, your brain kind of goes off. And so that's kind of the trick, is to be aware of the trigger and then to be able to act on it. That does take work and time, and you're seeing that because we're at the awareness. We're not, and sometimes you're able to act on it and sometimes not. That's normal. It's not a straight line. So I was at the pool. So I'm at a public pool, and I always was bringing my nice toiletries to the pool. Okay. And every time I went, somebody that, the bullies can spot you from a mile away.
She's a bully. That's
right.
A good
And this
point.
girl sees you as a doormat. She sees you as a doormat. And they saw me as a doormat. And so I was always being asked, can I use your shampoo? Can I use your face wash? I forgot mine. Da, da, da. To a really a big extent. Like, it was happening a lot. And I didn't want to share my stuff with other people. Why the fuck should I share my stuff with other people? Like, because I want to seem like a nice person to a bunch of strangers. Like, I had to really use the logic on myself. Like, what are you doing? Why are you, literally, this stuff is expensive. Why are you paying for everybody at the pool to use your toiletries? It was like, because I was so wedded to this idea. And I remember it was just like a real process. And one day somebody asked me, and they said, can I use your stuff? And I was kind of like where you're at now, where I was kind of in the middle, where I was like, I don't want to do it, but I don't think I can say no. So I did it, but I did it begrudgingly. And then after that, I was so mad at myself because I had abandoned my feelings in the moment for this stranger, to give this stranger my face wash. Why? That I promised myself I just wasn't going to do that again. I was going to just pay the price of whatever it was of not being a nice person. And it's literally never happened again. So you change your energy, and some of these issues won't even come up for you anymore. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the feedback.
You're welcome. And let me know how it goes. I'm excited to hear how this situation evolves. Neighbor problems can be kind of hard.
Yep.
Okay, hang in there. You're doing really well.
Thanks, Chloe.
You're welcome. Thanks for sharing. Okay, I see a bunch of hands. Andrew said he had a question. I'm thinking about this. Okay. Hi,
Hey,
Andrew.
thanks for taking my calls.
Oh, you're welcome. How can I help you? Did you have a question about Susan's work or you have your own question?
No, it was a personal question.
Okay. Okay, shoot.
It's about the feminine and masculine,
Mm-hmm. Oh, I can't hear you.
like whether or not I have
Are you speaking? Because
myself
I'm
out there.
okay. I'm only here. You're going really in and out. Can you repeat your question? I can't hear you that well.
You hear me?
Now I can hear you, but before that I couldn't hear you.
Oh, geez.
Okay, now I'm hearing you. You said, oh, geez.
Yeah, it
Okay.
was a a whole bunch of stuff is going on in my life that
That's frustrating. Okay. So all I heard was a whole bunch of stuff is going on in your life, but I didn't hear the actual question.
there's I find myself being a lot more feminine than masculine, and it kind of bothers me. And I know that I need to find a girlfriend is one of the most important things in my life right now. It's like essential that I find one. Putting myself out there, and I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong. Um, I think I've had this. I've talked to you before, quite a few months ago,
Mm-hmm.
and let's see. There's just something going on in my life that I'm not really sure of that's stopping me from being successful with a relationship.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of remember. And I think when we spoke, you had a number of women that you were seeing at the time.
I thought it was only one.
Okay. I think there were okay. For some reason I remember more than that. Okay, so what are you doing now to meet women? What's your
Right now, I've put myself on Bumble, and I know that's not really working to my expertise. Um, I go out. I think it's a confidence thing, and I can definitely carry on a conversation. I got really bummed out yesterday because I was on set and a whole bunch of I interacted with a whole bunch of women. The only problem is they were all already taken, and it just like when you get to the point where you shoot your shoot and you find out later on they're all taken, um it just puts a damper in your ability to keep on putting yourself out there. um Drained energy, just
Mhm.
not being myself, not feeling like myself, not wondering why I'm not being able to perform the way I was when I was dating somebody.
Hmm. Uh,
Um,
okay. So when we talked before, did you say you wanted to be in the masculine? You want your thoughts respected?
when you mean thoughts respected, what do you mean?
Well, everybody wants their thoughts respected and their feelings cherished. But the masculine position is getting your thoughts respected first. And the feminine position is getting your feelings cherished first. If you're in the masculine, you're the one making the first move. You're the one controlling the date. You're the one taking care of things. If you're in the feminine position, you're in the receiving zone. You're in the
It feels
vulnerable
very
zone.
awkward when I am in the feminine zone. I'm used to being the take control, take charge, alpha male kind of guy. And that's
Okay.
gone away, and that's a red flag for me that it's gone away.
Hmm. So
And
I'm
so
wondering, what is something happening in your life that is traumatic, or are you being triggered, or are some issues coming up for you?
Yeah. I've gone through a lot of personal issues with moving and having a lot of roommate issues. Um, things that are going on in my life that I'm not quite sure why they're happening. A lot of confusion, not too many outlets. My aunt just passed away. Um, what else? Just being sure and confident. I think I'm lacking confidence of knowing what to do with myself, and I know that's probably they pick up on that. They can
Mhm.
sense your insecurity.
You mean knowing what to do with your career?
Um, that's kind of limp-sided, but it's coming along. Like I'm doing stand-up comedy, and I'm trying to figure out what my flaws are, why I'm not progressing with stand-up comedy. I do aerial photography with drones. Um, I'm getting decent amount of work, but not the best work. Um, I think when I do approach women, it's keeping the conversation going, and I'm most of the time I'm fairly good at this, depending on if I'm using cannabis or not. I'm more open. It's like I turn into an extrovert versus an introvert when
Mhm,
with cannabis.
mhm.
Um,
Well, that
not
certainly
having,
helps when reaching out to people.
yeah, not
Um,
having a lot of wingmen in my life. Having
that's
the
okay. You don't need that. It's easier to meet somebody when you're alone. But what I'm hearing is,
inner chatter. Oh, that's another thing. The inner chatter is a big problem.
okay, so you're doing stand-up comedy. I don't know how long you've been doing it, but that when men create, they create off their feminine side. So you're having to be vulnerable in doing your stand-up. And so I think you might be just having a little bit of trouble code switching into being masculine after you've had to kind of be feminine in your creative state. Does that make sense?
Kind of, sort of.
Because look, being an alpha male really means you have a strong masculine side and a strong feminine side. It doesn't mean you're all masculine. And the things that you're describing that you're doing, which sound very creative, like photography and stand-up comedy, I know that if you're masculine, you have to create off your feminine side. So I'm hearing somebody who, yes, has a masculine side, but also has a feminine side. And so part of it is learning how to navigate between those two sides of yourself. And so when you're in your stand up, you definitely need that feminine creative energy to be present to some degree, right? Because otherwise, how are you going to come up with anything to say? But when you're, approaching women, you probably don't want to lead with that same impulse. Does that
Yep,
make
I get
sense?
those two confused, and I'm not really sure which one I am at the time.
Right. Okay, well, let's just say for now that if, look, sometimes men and women, sometimes people will vacillate in different relationships. Like, um, here's Rick in here. Yeah, Rick's here. So Rick was saying, I think it was last week, that it's like, sometimes he's with a woman and he feels feminine, but sometimes he meets a woman and his masculine side is brought out more. Okay. If you want to start with approaching women, then you're going to be leading with your masculine side. That means leading with your thoughts. And you will be inquiring about her feelings. Okay.
How so? Like you literally ask them how their day went, or what's on their mind, or what are they thinking about?
Well, not, yeah, you thinking that's masculine, but feeling. So it's like instead of what did you do today? How do how are you? How are you feeling? You know, how did even how did you sleep last night? Think of the world of like feelings. Um, one of whatever's happening, like that's that's one of the reasons men buy drinks for women, right? It
Yeah,
shows.
I'm not much of a drinker. That's another thing. I you know, if I were a drinker and I'd be going to a bar, I'd probably have no problem. I
No,
wouldn't be
I'm
bothered.
not recommending drinking. I'm just saying, I could use a different example, like men open doors for women, men pull out chairs for women. This is to show that they care how the woman feels, you know.
Gotcha. I think
So,
I've done all that, definitely, and that's not the problem.
okay, you're just not
Um,
keeping the conversation going, or
I don't know what I'm doing. It's, uh,
are
I
you
don't,
getting the eye contact and smile before you approach?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, good. So you got that. And if you find a woman has a boyfriend, I mean, it's not really a big deal if they have a boyfriend. It's more if they're married, that's when you really want to stay away. If they have a boyfriend, get in there and practice. It's kind of low stakes. If they have a boyfriend, you can still flirt with them.
Okay.
So if you're attracted, get in there and practice, and you never know. Like, people are breaking up all the time. So having a boyfriend isn't like the same as being married.
Gotcha.
So get in there and practice, and maybe even start practicing with women that you're not necessarily crazy about. I'm not saying lead them on, but sometimes practicing in a lower stress situation, which means when you're not as invested, helps. So, practice some of these masculine tools, inquiring about their feelings, the ways in which you can cherish a woman's feelings that go beyond opening a door or pulling a chair out or buying a drink, like maybe some conversational things, or um you know and again, you're the one who's going to be asking the questions and initiating the conversation and taking control of that stuff. We all go through ups and downs in our self-esteem and in our confidence, but it's very hard to work on that if you don't actually take any steps to do so. And so part of what happens when you do some of these things, just when you begin to contemplate what does it mean to cherish a woman's feelings, for example, that starts to create a change in your brain. Okay. And then that will help you bring your more masculine energy forward. Just exploring it will help you do that. And so it's also a process, not just a result. Um, and I mean, rejection, it sucks, but it is part of the process. And ultimately, you're talking about getting rejected by women that you don't really know that well. I mean, let's be real. It hurts a lot more when you're in a relationship with someone who knows you and loves you and dumps you out of nowhere, right?
But to
So
have that feeling, I would actually prefer that over what I go through. It's like that means, oh, you're making some sort of progress.
you mean you're feeling bad because you can't get into the actual relationship?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that happens sometimes. Also, people are really rusty after COVID. So everybody's kind of dealing with a little bit of trepidation in re-entering the world of socializing and relationships and even having eye contact. One of the weird things that happened when the masks went on is people stopped looking at each other, and that didn't need to happen. That's not contagious. So part of it is taking actions to help you move through these awkward times. Try starting with the 5 flirts and at least doing that seated flirt once a week, and
What's the
just
seated flirt?
practice going somewhere where you like what I said. Did you hear what I said to Nil? Where you going somewhere where you like the look of the women, whether it be a Starbucks, a museum, a dance class. Dancing is really good because it's, sensual. And so women like that.
Take a dance class?
Yeah, take a dance class, or there's, dancing events, or go dancing, right?
All right.
Um, you know, so try some of these things, and then, look, you can do your walking flirts just in the course of your day, but then pick one place, go at least 45 minutes an hour once a week, And if you find somewhere you like, you can pick it over, you can go there over and over, and then people get to know you, and then there's a level of comfortability, and it just makes everything easier. So and plant yourself, and that way when you do get the signal of the eye contact and the smile, you can make your approach, and don't let any one rejection throw you off course. It's just part for the course. It's just part of the game. You're going to get rejected. Everybody does. Everyone gets rejection. You're going to get probably more rejection than you're going to get thumbs up, but that's okay. It's not personal. It just means you guys aren't aligned. It doesn't really mean anything. It's just a complete stranger. It doesn't mean you're undesirable. See, just like Susan, you're letting that rejection, and this is totally normal. Everybody does this. Letting that rejection confirm a belief about yourself that is negative and probably inauthentic and was acquired in childhood. So just bring awareness to that. And
Childhood
just
trauma.
Yeah. And just be like, oh, that's triggering me. Okay, well, I'm still going to keep, trying to meet a woman.
Okay.
That's just triggering me. Oh, well, we can have negative feelings and thoughts alongside positive ones. You just don't want those things to control you. You want to be aware of them, but not necessarily react to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds like a challenge sometimes because it depends on if you're in your head a lot. You're in the moment.
And that's why this work is so good for people like you who are alphas, and people like me, and probably everyone in this room at this point, because your heart and your head are always arguing. Betas don't have that conflict. They just go ahead and eat their sandwich and they're fine. But you're a little more than that. So you're going to have this argument between your heart and your head.
Conflict.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's just a little more work. That's all. You have greater potential, but it's also more work.
And I got to get out of the procrastination and laziness and finding things to do to occupy myself. That's another issue.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like those words because they have some elements of shame in them. A lot of times procrastination is a cover for other issues. But yeah, you got to take an action. Without taking an action, you really can't do anything, right?
Yep. All right. Thank you.
You are so welcome. And, reach out to me if you need more help. We can set up a private, or maybe
How do I reach out?
here, I'll put my stuff into the chat again.
Thank you.
You can reach out to me through my website or through Instagram or even through Meetup. But I also, that's another thing I do. If you guys need, 15 minutes, and I already know you from Meetup, you can just book 15 minutes. I'm not going to charge you for a full hour. That's another thing that I do. So, if it's something quick and we can get through it quick, great. And then the other thing is, you might be interested is signing up for one of those packages, because we were able to go pretty deep in there and see. So that's in module. Okay, I put that in. That's in module packages. We're able to go pretty deep in those packages, and people really get a lot out of them and learn a lot, because we get to really apply the theory to our lives as we're learning it. And that helps, really helps. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing, Andrew. Okay, it's already 7. Wow, that went fast tonight. Thank you guys for coming. It's you are so welcome, Adrian. I love doing these groups. I love hearing from you guys. We all get to learn from each other, and this is part of the community that I'm building. As I said, you're free to reach out to me in the meantime, but if I don't hear from you, I will see you next week. Bye.